Hello.
Hey, Steve.
How's it going?
Going all right.
You taking any time for the end of the year?
I'm actually taking a little time now, and then I'll take some more at the end of the year. So I got 2 weeks of like the office is like, we haven't seen you in a while. If we want to cram 4 weeks of work in all at once, I'm sure they'll show up here in the next couple of weeks. But
It's one of the things that's nice when you have even worldwide holiday periods where it's just things. I mean, back in the day when we shipped box software, Redmond would kind of slow down during the summer. So there was low expectations and it was fine. Transitioning to services changed that, but certain holiday periods just like, no, you're not even supposed to deploy stuff to production. So why now?
I've had clients in all kinds of different areas, and I've done a lot of retail work in the past. Not like man the cash registers myself, but just work in the back office for some of these things, set up some software. And it's interesting seeing how different retail organizations have different requirements of how they slow things down, when they slow things down. So some of them right now is you're in hard lockdown, nothing goes out to the stores because they're counting on the Black Fridays and everything else. And then I switched to another one, which was how do I phrase it? Because I don't want to drop the client name, but they were basically doing outfits, festivities, fun kind of stuff. And so their time was right around Halloween.
Yeah.
Like, that's our Black Friday. And I was like, mind blown. I just assumed all retail was end of the year, but no.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always nuanced details there. That's definitely a thing. I'm not sure. I could ping Marina. I think we were on for this week.
Just about to do the same thing. I don't see her little green dot on, so I wonder if she's around.
Yeah.
You
pinging her
right now?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I did see she was doing a status, and then we've got who's going to sign the timestamp. My impression right now, as much as we want to get this built into the registry in the future, at least day one, what I'm thinking of is that it'll probably still be a separate process to start with for the timestamps and the snapshots. It's not ideal. I don't want that to be the final solution, but I'm just thinking of what she's developing right now today.
I think it's get something up and iterate. Like, this is the thing that's, I think, how we've made so much progress with Notary is that, you don't shoot for perfect, understand the requirements. That's been the key piece, because otherwise you're just pissing people off because they keep on putting stuff out, not know why you say no. But if we can define the requirements, you don't have to meet them all right away. Prove the things that you think you need and just say, look, I didn't solve that problem yet. Yeah, it's critical. We can't ship without it, but I didn't try to solve it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, because I imagine kind of similar to going back to the idea of how we're going to do backward compatibility with existing registries. Not sure if you saw, I threw up, I felt bad because I threw it as a HackMD document.
No, where do you note that? I didn't see that.
Put that over on, it's a comment linking over the HackMD on the issue of how to do the older versions of registries.
Oh, that stuff. I don't think that stuff generates notifications. So you might just want to pop that in a Slack channel.
Well, if you're not subscribed to the issue, you might not see
the HackMD or the what
so
issue?
I dropped a comment pointing over the HackMD.
Oh, a comment in what?
It's on the
notification. Yeah, just pop me a link if you don't mind, and I'll take a quick look.
Hey, Marina.
Hey, Marina, you're there.
Hello.
Welcome.
How's everyone?
Good.
Sorry, I'm a minute late.
No worries.
You hit the 5-minute mark. It's all good.
I made it by 5, so I guess I'm almost on time. But
so how's progress going lately? I did rebase my Makefile one because I saw that even after you merged it, it still showed 2 commits. I'm like, there's only 1 commit there, so I just rebased it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that was what I was waiting on that one. I didn't want to duplicate the commit in the main thing. So
I don't think it would have duplicated. I think it's just GitHub sees it differently when you've got a merge versus a rebase. So I just fix that up.
Should be fine. Okay, so so there's that piece, and then I think I have all of the pieces in the like the Tough Notary piece for the delegations are set up. I just don't really want to merge it until I've actually merged the GoTough piece, so that we're not relying on my fork of it. And then kind of similar for the, what's it called? The actually delegating to a hash or a descriptor of the image. So what I was thinking for today is, because I'm kind of waiting on some of the GoTough stuff for that piece of the implementation, is we could get back to talking about kind of snapshot and timestamp. Because I think that that's a piece that if we figure out how to do it, we could do it now with the implementation. So yeah, and this is also just, I think, one of the big things that we need to talk about. So this would be a good chance for that.
Yeah, and I was just dropping a link over to Steve about talking about backward compatibility with registries, and we were chatting about this just before you were showing up. And I'm thinking in terms of timeframes and what we want to get done now versus long-term future.
Yeah.
It's going to take a while to get the registries updated to be able to put some functionality like this in the registry. We'll probably get pushed back all over the place and whatnot. So easiest and quickest is going to be more than likely setting up an external process to start with, but then just describing, okay, here's how this could potentially be put into a registry in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably at least as far as getting a proof of concept and all the pieces like end to end working together, I think that's going to be the best place to start. And I think that the timestamp, even in the long term, because it does need kind of that heartbeat, it might make the most sense to keep that separate. Even if it's run by the registry, they'd want to have, I think, a separate process doing that piece of it.
Yeah,
so
that was one that I was looking back in Notary version 1, thinking of how to maintain some of these disconnected mirrors that would be in some kind of isolated environment, and how to replicate all the signed content out to a remote site. And I was thinking along the lines of, could I make something that is doing that timestamping remotely isolated in that environment, potentially with a separate timestamp key? I'm not sure, get something that was signed, but an idea like that, if we had this as an external process, might make a solution like that a lot easier.
Yeah, so you have this basically in like in a separate repo, you're saying, or in a separate environment?
Yeah, I'll throw the example out there. This was talking about maintaining infrastructure, think power grids, water, all that kind of stuff, all the major utilities.
Yeah.
They would have stuff out in the field that would want to only run signed content.
Yeah.
And potentially national disaster comes through, forest fire takes out all the stuff. They are severed off from the rest of their connectivity for a week or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't want to suddenly say, okay, none of this stuff is signed anymore. So they need a way to locally refresh that continuously. And so some way that they could constantly say, it's all still good. We're all still signed here, even though we can't talk back to home base. And so a way to replicate that timestamping service out into the field was something that was interesting.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I know in Upchain, which is the automotive variant, there's a kind of an ongoing discussion about kind of a similar thing, but for like factory updates, right? Because before vehicles are connected to the network, you might want to do like put the update on a USB instead of actually over the network. But it's nice not to have a whole separate mechanism, right, for that type of update. And it's kind of, there's no resolution there yet, but I think it might be a similar idea, right, where you want maybe to allow the timestamp to last a little bit longer or something like that, so that you can.
Yeah, there are a few different options along those lines of, making that stuff last longer was one option. And then the other option I was thinking of was that you just run a separate timestamping server. And as long as all these things are signed by the root certificate, you just have multiple things that can do the timestamp signature out there. And, we might have to go out there and periodically refresh that timestamp certificate in the field, give them a new one, because we might only make that last a year or something like that, or 6 months.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you can even do that with Tough today. It's just not very common. Like you just put 2 different trusted keys and a threshold of 1. So you say, any of these keys, right, would be adjusted for this thing. Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's kind of the use case when we're talking about separate process or not. That's one of the ones that kind of goes around my head, just because I was really familiar with all the challenges faced with Notary version 1 and how to do that. And so this would be a really nice solution to make that a fair bit easier. If it is a separate process, it's easy to spin up wherever you need to spin it up. Yeah.
So you say like separate process. I mean, I think you would have to update the root metadata, right, to trust that new key, but that it's doable. That requires a little bit of work, but yeah. We can even add something like that to the CLI, like add new timestamp key.
I think one of the things that we keep on talking about, and it's good to scope is saying, look, this is what, if this is what we need it, the server side timestamping service and so forth. The piece that I keep on coming back to is, what does it take to promote a signature to another registry or another repo in the same registry? Either way, meaning I've got 10,000 repos, 5 repos, doesn't matter. I've got 10,000 tags, tagged objects in a single repo. And it's not just the quantity part, but I actually only want 3 of those to get promoted into the other repo. How do I do that? Because if I have to re-sign it in the next one, it kind of defeats the purpose. We're back to Docker content
I think the idea is that, so you have this top level tough metadata, right? This is the root, top level targets, timestamp, snapshot. So there's kind of that set of 4, and that's in its own tough repository. And then you have the place where the content is actually stored, like, you have artifact 1 or whatever, and you have some delegated targets metadata associated with that. And you can think of that, it's basically just a signature, right? That piece of it, just a signature onto the metadata. So if you want to move this, you just have to move this thing that's stored alongside the artifact to another place. And then, but you do want to make sure, because you're promoting it anyway, you're like, okay, I know this was signed with this trusted key. And so you want to kind of anyway make sure that it's signed by the right key. And so as part of that, you then add that trusted delegation to, depending on whether you're moving it within the same registry or to a different registry, you might have to, like if you move it to a new registry, let's say, I think this is the hardest case, so we can just explain that one. In your new registry, you also have a top level tough, a set of top level tough metadata, right? So you have this root, targets, snapshot, timestamp, and this is the one that you control yourself, right? So you can, because you have this, you can configure, okay, I trust less targets keys than say Docker does, or whoever this other person controlling these other ones is. So you copy this content over. You have kind of the signature piece, you have the content, you add a delegation to your targets metadata, your top level targets, and then you set off some automated process to do snapshot and timestamp. You shouldn't have to think about that. That should just kind of happen.
And is it just for signatures? Because if I want to promote an SBOM across, a signed SBOM for that matter, is this all specialized for this? I guess it's all specialized for the signature aspect.
Yeah. So if there was an unsigned SBOM, you wouldn't have to deal with the tough metadata at all, because it's not signed. But if you did want to sign
it's a special occasion. It's a specialization of the signing scenario. Okay.
Yeah. So for signing, you want to do this because it provides you basically, so you know who's signing things. That's the biggest thing it gives you, is it gives you kind of that key management. And because if you're copying a signature, like you want to be able to verify it. So you have to know who's signing it anyway.
Yeah, I think it just. I think this is the okay. It's a matter of whether the registry is responsible for helping validate that signature, or it's independent, and the registry is just the dumb storage bucket.
I agree, and I think that there's I think a variant of this that I haven't gotten to in this version of the implementation, but that I think about, which is like that you as a local, like the person who's downloading has a top level targets metadata that they maintain separate for the one on the registry. Or even if
where would they maintain it? Because if you go back to the ephemeral client problem.
Yeah, I mean, this then has this is then the whole thing where you're replacing your artifact distribution with the key distribution problem. But but if you say had like a company who then distributed this, so you had whatever, that could be a service. That's part of why I think storing it on the registry makes more sense, because if you have, say, a company that's managing that list anyway, it makes sense for them to put it on the registry so a lot of people can use it. But theoretically, you could just do it yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, so I might have missed some of the details there, because shame on me for typing and listening at the same time. But I'm thinking from your question, Steve, you're going to copy, here's the tags I want to copy over and the associated metadata. So you'll have whatever way you're going to copy those over. And then I think you're going to have at least a partial copy of a repository that you want to run and deploy. I think you're going to need a full copy of all the tough metadata, because you'll need to know
that's what makes me nervous.
So I think it depends on whether you want to copy all of the tough stuff, or if you want to maintain, like especially if you're like promoting to a private environment or whatever, I imagine you wouldn't want to trust everything that the public environment trusts, right? So you probably want to maintain your own top level metadata.
So separate like forking, make a separate top level metadata. I'm thinking of root keys and all the delegations and whatnot.
Yeah, so the downside, if you do that, you would want to, instead of trusting the public root key, you'd trust your private registry root key. But again, I think for the scenario that Steve talks about a lot, where it's, you know, you're promoting to a private internal location, you probably want to trust the private internal one anyway, right? That's the
so that gets into, are we doing ingesting and re-signing it with our own internal key, or are we saying let's get a copy of this thing publicly and keep it noted that, hey, Docker Hub signed this thing, even though we're copying this stuff over here?
Yeah, I was thinking mostly of well, I guess it's kind of, I'm thinking kind of a hybrid actually. So you copy the Docker signature, but you just add a delegation to the Docker signature for that image in your local environment. Alternately, you could just re-sign it. I mean, that's totally an option as well. But
I think even when you're re-signing it, it's not that you're just re-signing it, it's you're adding a signature, because you're saying, yes, the Docker signature was there and I've checked that.
Yeah.
But I've also checked the SBOM. I ran a unit test that says not only is it signed by Docker or Wabbit Networks or whoever, but it actually meets, like, the reason they did an update for some reason. There's literally some change in it. Is that and every change has the potential to break.
Make sure it doesn't break all your code and everything.
Right. So it could even be a security fix that removes some really bad behavior that I was dependent upon. I mean, this is how .NET broke the world multiple times, right? Like this has always been the problem. It was a security fix that changed the order of eventing. Like, you're not supposed to be dependent on the order of eventing, but somebody did. So
and I think that's actually kind of the cool piece, right? Is you can, in your private registry, you can set the target's metadata to have a threshold of 2 instead of 1 or whatever. So that you want to make sure that there's both this Docker signature and your internal one. You could even have more than that depending on.
Yeah, and the root of the tangent of all that was all I was getting is what you kind of got to was it's not that I no longer care about the Docker signature. It's just I've added one to it that says, yeah, Docker said it was okay, and we've said it's okay. Now, the way you say the "and" is interesting, because the reality is, like, when you go to this is why I love the airport one. Like, when I get on the plane, they don't look at my driver's license or boarding pass. They don't care how it was determined. Like the Docker signature is irrelevant at that point. All that matters is the TSA signature, the airport TSA, not the timestamp.
You could like decide basically whether you want to double check on the client intake, or you just want to trust that the person who copied it over did that verification and just check the next step in the chain. I think that's, I don't think we can make that decision for people.
No, we should. It's just a matter of providing the infrastructure. And then if they want to promote just the Acme Rocket signature and get rid of the Docker signature, or get rid of the SBOM, because
exactly, because they say, oh, our verification is good enough at this point, and they can just do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thought, and I definitely want to get that end-to-end working, and we can make sure it all works. But that's
we were talking about this just as you were joining. You know, doing the iterative stuff, like keeping you on block so you can keep on iterating, and here's the list of things we're trying to achieve. I didn't solve that in this one. Like, like this is how we said, we know we need to solve revocation.
Yeah.
Alpha 1 or draft 1, I forget which one's which. We said we didn't solve that problem. We know we need to solve it. It's not solved now, but there is a list to see what we are trying to solve and what we didn't. Do you have that for what you're trying to do with Tough in this case? Like,
yeah, I don't know if it's I did my best in this anyway. I have a bunch of issues opened in the repo, and kind of setting up what we're trying to get in this initial version working. And that kind of copied over some of the goals documents and stuff from various other places. Yeah, and I think as far as like actual getting things working, I think my kind of current goal is just to get a proof of concept of all of the pieces, probably through that copying scenario, right? Because that seems to be one of the big ones. Yeah. And then hopefully before the end of the year, but I probably won't demo it till next year because of holidays, get that all working. And then, yeah, then go from there. So basically then get feedback and see how we're doing.
Sounds good. I mean, I think seeing a demo is, obviously, here's the goals, here's the requirements, but by the way, here's what works and what doesn't work yet.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work yet, but it's kind of obvious we'll fix it. Or we can fix it, right? I have this other analogies, the telephone pole being in the middle of the road, like clearly that's a problem. It's easy to, it's that particular one makes it obvious you can fix it, but it's when the road wraps around the building that you have to go like, that seems like a bigger problem.
That's part of this snapshot and timestamp one too, is that I think we can demo most of the functionality without this working. It's just that we also want to make sure at some point that this works so that we get the actual security properties from the other stuff.
Sounds good.
So
cool.
Yeah. So as far as getting that to work, so I think that, so timestamp again has to be some kind of, it's a heartbeat. So it must be some version of a cron job for whatever service this is running on. Which I guess that's a question. Like, is there a best practice in this space that you guys know of how to, what kind of, thing I should use to automate that?
Like, how do you know something got added?
Well, for snapshot, it's just if you know you got added, and I figure we can even require like if you're using our CLI, we can just tell ourselves basically that it's added. But for the timestamp, because it needs to happen even if nothing's added.
So that
I see the timestamp updates.
That brings up a question to me: is should the snapshot be something that's run on the same server with the timestamp, and then it just needs to be a web service somewhere running at that point?
Yeah, so I guess at that point, maybe just a web service. And the snapshot, I guess, is a little bit different, but it can just like also periodically say, are there updates, and just only actually push if there are updates.
Because where I'm looking at is, are we just trusting whatever images are up on the registry right now? And if so, does the snapshot really give us value at that point?
I don't like that, actually. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'd much rather have people actually authenticate to the snapshot and say, I'm updating this to this version number or something like that.
Kind of where I was leaning toward having it as a separate web service. So you push your image up, but then you also have to go talk to the snapshot/timestamp service and say, hey, I made a change here. Snapshot it for me, please. And also keep that timestamp updated. Yeah,
that makes sense. And then you could probably use like whatever credentials the person has for, actually they have a private key that they already are using, right? For uploading their metadata.
Your signing key.
Do some kind of verification with that.
Yeah, so that's
whatever. Yeah,
that's the logic going through my head, is something along those lines probably has to be together. If there are better ways, I'm all ears.
Yeah, I definitely think some kind of authentication would be important. And because if it's running on the registry, right, then the registry has ways to authenticate people already, which is convenient. As a separate service, we'd probably want to set something else up to authenticate them.
Yeah. It has a way to authenticate. I don't know if we want to consider that as secure as what we're trying to implement here.
I think we want things like 2FA for this. We want some kind of real authentication.
At the very least, to trust the key that you use to sign. That seems like the bare minimum for us. Versus whatever password they've got for logging into the registry, which may just be,
I guess one of the things we're trying to solve is in fact account compromise, and so it's nice to have a separate key that's not that key.
Yeah, so I'm kind of going down that path. In terms of how this could potentially be added to the registry long term, there is the whole extension protocol, or I think it's over in distribution spec, where they're talking about how to add extensions into the registry. And so they've got a syntax, I think, or I was just looking at that now for some of their stuff for the artifact spec stuff they're working on. In terms of you put a certain syntax in there that says, okay, underscore notary / timestamp or signature or something like that. Some kind of API endpoint that you can hit. And so there is a logic for how this could be added to a registry in the future. So we've got a path forward. And so as long as you're thinking, okay, if it's a web service and you just hit this API and your request or sign or verify or timestamp, whatever the API requests are, think about those, and then that can easily be turned into something that could be on a registry if they wanted to. Yeah, in fact, I'll drop you a link to that extension stuff that they're talking about.
Yes, I can make sure it'll work with that eventually. Okay.
It's super simple. It's just a path in the URL that people know, and so nothing you need to worry about right now as is external. But thinking of logically how you could potentially move that internal later on gives you your path forward.
To make sure eventually it could work in there.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. That should be pretty straightforward. I don't think this is going to be a very complicated service, but we'll see what happens. So, okay, anything else? I think with that, and once I get those GoTough pieces finalized, we'll be most of the way to kind of a demoable point, which is nice. And then, I don't know, anything else, any other pieces anyone wants to talk about?
Nothing for me.
Okay.
I'll go through at some point and have a look at some of the Go stuff you've been doing on the GoTough, but I'm not there yet. Too many other things in GoLand that I'm playing with that's breaking all kinds of things.
Yeah, the delegations one has definitely gotten a lot bigger than anticipated too. So it's a lot of code there, but
cool. Okay. Yeah, I went ahead and dropped. I'll just drop it in the notes, and I'll actually add us as attendees in the notes so we can keep track of who was here.
Looks like people actually showed up for this meeting.
It's important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cool. So I'll throw that in there, and and I gotta get my syntax right for links. Cool. So yeah, I think that's all I've got.
Yeah, I think that's it. Good check-in. Thanks everyone. If you have other things, feel free to add on GitHub or whatever, and see you around.
See you later. Have a good week. I think from an expectation, I think we'll be around next week. I'm not sure how many people will be around after that.
Yeah, I think next week should be good. And then, yeah, especially because this is on Friday, which I think is going to be a weird day this month. But yeah, anyway.
I'll be around if you want to chat anytime, but
okay,
whatever works.
all right.
Sounds good.
Cool. Take care.